Hey y'all. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit more about how permaculture design process and permaculture design principles can be used to empower yourself to break out of dysfunctional, unhealthy, oppressive mental health cycles. So this is a topic that I've been interested in for a really long time. And yes, there's social permaculture, but this is more in the realm of emotional permaculture. So I have my book here, Food Not Lawns, that I wrote back in 2006. And in that book, I was just getting into this type of theory, and I was actually struggling with a lot of mental health issues. And I was just starting to think about how permaculture design can be applied to ourselves. And sometimes we call that zone zero, or some people call it zone 00, which I don't know why. But and it's about this question of who do you need to be in order to live in the world the way that you want to live in the world. And if you want to be sustainable, or if you want to help others, or if you want to preserve biodiversity. So this ecological design is all about that. Obviously, permaculture is all about that. And in my book, I illustrate this GOBRADIME design process, which is something that I've used a lot. And it's an acronym: goals, observation, boundaries, resources, analysis, design, implementation, maintenance, monitoring, management. Those are all the M's. And E for evaluation, and of course, enjoy. So I would like to go through this GOBRADIME process just a little bit more deeply with you and look at how we can use this process to create a container around which we build our happiness, around which we build our healing journey, our mental health plan, just like a physical health plan and or both, right? Because these things are not in any way disconnected. So step one would be goals. So that's obvious. We state our goals and try to state measurable goals and think about how to articulate those goals. And one of the things they use is this SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, I can't remember the R, and time bound, And so this is the thing, is like you create these goals where you can tell when you have got there. And so that's what you do. I want to feel better. I want to be happy. I want to not cry myself to sleep every night. That's measurable, right? I want to make art every day. I want to make art once a week. I want to finish that book I've been trying to write, etc. Goals. Step two, observation. That's fundamental in all of life and in permaculture and in just your body. This is why we do things like a mind scan or a body scan. This is why we draw a picture of the beast within, so that we can observe it. And so, when all else fails, revert back to that observation mode, just like in a landscape design. So this stuff is super geeky for me, and I love it. And, moving on, and we're moving quickly here because this is just a short video, and in hopes of inspiring you on going a little bit further down this little path with me. So step three would be boundaries. And, mental health, having good relationships is all about boundaries. That is the whole thing. I can't even believe that I did and studied and practiced and taught permaculture for so long without realizing that my lack of clear, defined, and well-maintained boundaries were the primary reason that I was not being healthy mentally. So fascinating. It's amazing how much we can be blind to in the moment. Moving on, step four, resources. So there's so many resources, and a lot of us tend to suffer because we aren't aware of the resources that are available to us. And this goes so far beyond, free counseling. Our body is a resource. Yoga is a resource. The dance community is a resource. The trees are a resource. There's so many layers. And so the more we can learn to recognize those resources, and the more we can learn to generate them, and we can shift our minds from this poverty mind, scarcity mind, into abundant mind, and look around and see that there are all sorts of resources all the time. So emotionally, we tend to get into this, nobody is going to help me. Nobody understands me. I'm so oppressed. Nobody cares what happens to me. And I felt like that for years at a time, and it doesn't really matter. That's fine. If nobody cares what happens to you, boo-hoo, do your thing anyway. It's not what it's about, you know? So step 5 is analysis. So now you've assessed all this information, you've done this observation, you've established some boundaries, you figure out what your resources are, you go back through and you think about it, and you start comparing, you know, pros and cons, and you use these different analytical tools. You know, you create a map. You can create a physical map of your boundaries. You can do a little drawing of yourself, and you put that in there. And then when you're in your analysis phase, you write, you know, what's comfortable to have in these different places, right? In your house all the time, in your life on a weekly basis, in your life on a monthly basis, just friends on Facebook, whatever, you know. And then as we're analyzing and we're looking at all these resources, we're looking back at all these tools, these things like the plants as a huge resource. And we're analyzing, am I spending enough time with them? I love the plants. How much time do I even spend out there? A lot of time. Okay, cool. I'm doing good in that area. Or, no, I need to make an adjustment and I need to drop this other thing that I'm spending time doing. I too have spent months of my life cracking out on Netflix or caught up in some dead-end relationship and spending too much time just texting some, fuckboy. But, you forgive yourself. And that comes around to a lot of this, is in this analysis phase, before you can really design the life that you want, it's really important to deeply forgive yourself. And forgive me for sounding really new agey, because I am not into that. Oh, you should love yourself. Well, loving yourself is all about boundaries, and it's all about forgiving yourself, and it's about treating yourself the way you want others to treat you. It took me a long time to figure that out, and that's how I can be so sure about it, because I was very critical in my pursuit of what does it mean to love yourself. Moving on to the design phase, which is so fun. This is when you get to dream. This is when you get to figure out what it is that you really want. This is when you get to use all of these tools and start to establish a practice. And this is where this daily practice that I'm so into comes into play. Because as you're designing, if you're practicing every day, then you can be making little tweaks. You know, you can draw your garden on paper as many times as you want, but until you get out there and start planting, you're not going to know your mistakes. You're not going to learn. You're just going to be all in your head all the time. So you go in there for a while and you get all those resources out of there and you dive into your imagination and figure out what you can figure out. And then you go and you get your feet dirty and you make something happen. So this is design. Design is figuring out what that means on the timeline and establishing this is the time for thinking. This is the time for action. These are the things we're going to need. This is what we're going to do a year from now, and this is what we're going to do tomorrow. And then you move into the implementation stage, and this is just like turn off the computer, shut up, Heather Jo Flores, go outside and do the thing that you were going to do, or go into your art studio, or sit down and start typing away on the book. Because, if you're not spending time writing, then you're not a writer. So, implementation. And then we get to maintenance, monitoring, mistakes, mumbo jumbo, and roll with it for a while and document your work and go back through, or start a new project while you're maintaining this other one. See how far you can push it. See how many layers you can go. And that this again applies back to your mental and emotional health, because you have to maintain this. You can't just say, okay, I'm going to do yoga every day for 40 days and then I'm well. And, I'm going to engage in a, 60-day decolonize yourself program, and then I'm woke and then it's all done. I'm good to go. I'm happy forever. No, this is a daily practice. And just like the preservation of biodiversity, just like permaculture, just like gardening, just like renewable energy, doing community work, the more you succeed, the more there is to do, the more layers you peel back. For me, it's manifesting as the more I stay on the path of trying to be happy, trying to be healthy, trying to be clear, the more I realize how much I'm actually capable of. And I knew I was capable of a lot of stuff, but I would always just get so burnt out. And now that I'm not getting so burnt out, then I'm realizing that there's just so much that I can do from this place of joy. So yeah, I guess I sometimes am sounding kind of new agey, but I'm just like living proof that we can change. our lives. And then we get to step 9, evaluation. And that's what writing is for. That's what art is for. That's what interacting with your community is for. However, I do want to say that nobody gets to criticize you unless you ask them to. And a lot of people love to volunteer this unsolicited advice, that it's actually unsolicited criticism that is sort of carefully shrouded in this good intentions advice. And, you know, of course, we're all on the internet and we're interacting and we're having these conversations, and it can be hard to tell what someone's intentions actually are. And I personally, part of my self-care, part of my self-love is creating a boundary around that and not allowing unsolicited critique in my life. And, but to balance that, I do invite solicited critique from my trusted community, from people who I have a relationship with, from people who are, I'm sure, are not, out to hurt me. Or not that anyone's like out to hurt you, but there are people who for sure they care about you. And those are the people that you should be getting your feedback from. So, just because you don't want a complete stranger on Facebook to tell you everything that's wrong with your painting or your article that you wrote does not mean that you're living in a bubble or an echo chamber. It just means that maybe you just have some boundaries and you would like to choose who your critics are. And you get to do that. So that's it. So GOBRADIME, and there's so much more I could say on this. It's just such a many layered topic. And so this is just the second of a few videos that I'll do on this subject. So talk to you soon.